Welcome. This is Kristen Crabtree with the Lance Edwards Group. We have a special treat for you today. We're interviewing a new apartment champion who is here to share his story about how he closed on his first multifamily deal since getting started with Lance's system. Please help me welcome Gene.
Hello, my name is Gene Seus. I'm about 68 years old and excited to be here.
Awesome. That's great. So I'll start with just a recap of his deal that we're going to be focusing on today. It was 18 units, and he did have some prior real estate investment experience, which we'll talk about. His objective was to create passive income. His strategy was rehab and hold. The deal is located in Ohio, and he's located in California. He found the deal through Trulia. And what really intrigued him about it was that it had 42 underutilized storage units attached, which is pretty awesome. He put $110,000 of his own money and $50,000 from a family member into the deal and got a local banker to arrange the financing. The property did need some work. Looks like he invested about $60,000 and it is starting to cash flow now. Does that sound like a good summary, Gene?
Yes, it does.
Okay, awesome. So before we get started, share with me a little about your personal and professional background.
I grew up on a farm in Northern California, and farming has always been in my blood. So when my brother decided he wanted to invest in a sod farm in Central California, I quit, and my wife quit our jobs, came down to Central California and started a sod farm. And that was very successful. I've always knew that real estate was a valuable thing. So we bought our first house about 2 weeks before we got married and rehabbed it while we were living in it. I'm married to a saint. She doesn't like to hear that, but it's true. And we sold that house a year later and bought two other ones at the same time in rehab condition, moved into one. All our house plants froze the first night because there were 16 windows broken out in the wintertime. She's a saint.
Yes, she is.
Then we moved into the other one and rehabbed it. And after 5 years, the real estate market collapsed. And for us to move to California, we had to sell that house. And we sold it after putting about 20 grand into it and 5 years of rehab. We sold it for $1,000 less than we paid for it.
Oh,
because of the crash.
mm-hmm.
So we came down here and I bought and sold houses as we moved up and as our family got larger. And in 2009, we lost the sod farm, and it was an economic disaster for us. And about that time, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and so I found myself in Mexico City for trying to qualify for this incredible cancer treatment. And I knew that if I wasn't around, I needed passive income for my wife. And so while I was there on my computer, I saw an ad for Lance's small apartments, big money. And so I signed up for it before I even came back to the States. And we did that. And I took my son with me, and so we launched on a real estate campaign. Basically, my goal was to provide passive income for my wife, because I didn't know what my future held, but I did know who held it. So, and it was very, very interesting going through the in-person seminars. That was before the pandemic, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And so we started looking for properties, and I found a property in Ohio on the internet, and through my personal coach, Hoku, she helped us every step of the way. And while we were there investigating this 18-unit apartment complex, we stumbled onto a property in Pittsburgh, because that's where the airplane landed. And it appeared to me to be such a good deal that we made an offer on it, and the offer was accepted for $44,000 for a duplex. And I'm going, from California, you can't buy a doghouse for $44,000.
That's for sure.
So financing was a little tough, and my family partner said, Gene, let's just pay cash and be done with it. So we did. So we own it free and clear. And I guess that means it cash flows because all the payments go to our bottom line. But it did need quite a bit of rehab. We haven't put a dime into it because it is fully occupied. And anyway, so that was the first little property that we bought, but we did go to St. Clairsville is where our apartment complex is. And we made an offer on that for significantly less than they were listed it for. It had been on the market quite a while. And out of 42 units, I think they had 10 of them, of the 42 storage units, I think they had 10 of them that were occupied. And this property was a pretty big mess. It needed a lot of work, more work than I thought. And so I figured we'd invest 30 grand in fixing it up. We ended up investing up to this point about 60 grand. However, it started cash flowing about 4 months ago. It was kind of breaking even for a while, and we got it almost fully occupied. I think we have 2 units that are not occupied, and it's cash flowing. And so there's that passive income. And in this economy, that's a good thing. The closing, however, was a nightmare. And the reason was a nightmare is because I neglected to follow one of Lance's rules. And that was, don't buy anything that is not within 30 miles of a population center. St. Clairsville, Ohio is about 45 miles from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And there were no comps. I couldn't get even private money investors interested because they tried to do comps and there was none. And I ended up going to the bank that was carrying the current paper on it, the local bank, and they wouldn't even refi because the appraiser went out and looked at the property and emailed them a couple of pictures and said, you don't want to finance. And I couldn't believe it. And they backed out of the financing based on a couple of pictures from an appraiser. Talk about fiduciary irresponsibility. I couldn't believe it. So the banker that was working for that bank said, I know a guy that works for a competing bank and he'll probably finance it. And they finally did. But it was 6 months past closing estimated date and 6 extensions. And
Wow.
the
Yeah.
banker and the realtor that was dealing with it, I've never seen this happen. And I think the only reason the seller didn't back out was because he knew it was going to be tough to sell it, and because I poured concrete around his feet so he couldn't leave.
That helps.
Yeah, we finally got it closed, and what a nightmare, but it was Hoku's help and Lance's program that helped me navigate and stick to it. And I never quit anything. So anyway, it closed. We now have a cash flowing 18-unit apartment building with a 42-unit storage facility attached to it. And what made
Fantastic.
what other questions do you have?
So that was a great story and lots of good information. I do want to clarify some chronology just for the story that I'll be writing. So in 2009, you lost the sod farm, economic disaster, found out you have prostate cancer, which obviously you're doing better from. So that's good to know.
Prostate.
And you said that you found Lance when you were in Mexico for that treatment back in 2009. So did you start with him back then? And if so, can you fill in the gaps on timing of the properties?
No, you have the timing wrong.
Oh,
I had prostate cancer I found him in the fall of 2019, 2019. I was not stage 4 for quite a while, but I delayed radiation too long and it metastasized. So I was stage 4 from 2017. I was in Mexico 2019 in the fall, like October. And that's when I saw Lance's program. And that's when I invested in it. And when I came back to the States, my son and I went to Orlando. So we were involved with Lance from the end of 2019 on.
Okay, so I got the dates wrong. The sod farm was not 2009, that was 2019.
No, 2009.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
there was a period of time.
There was a period of time. I have other businesses. I had 2 other landscape related businesses, and they were just barely making money during that time too. And we went through a lot of assets during that time just to survive. The net worth just steadily dropped. And when I came back from Mexico City, that was pretty tapped out, other than some properties that had some equity in them. So.
Okay, good. I'm glad I got clarification there. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I know that I know that you were looking to create passive income to set your family up in your absence. Why multifamily investing? Like, what got you pursuing that?
It made total sense when I read the book that he sends out to prospective people. It made total sense, and I knew from the real estate that I'd done all my life that all the 5 parts of income are there. All the appreciation and the paying the loan down. Having other people pay the loan down, and all those different forms of income are attached to multifamily properties. And when the economy crashes, somebody still needs a place to live. It made total sense to me, and I still believe it. Even in this area, even in this time when this is an uncharted territory as far as economy goes. We got inflation that's running rampant. The government is raising interest rates, even though it's going to create a fiasco for the federal government. They won't even be able to pay their debt on the national debt. Who knows where this is really going to end up, but people still need a place to live. And the rents are going up like crazy in California. And I've raised them in Ohio also, nothing like they are here, but even in Ohio, I bought that 18-unit apartment complex for $650,000, and my house in California was worth that much, one house.
Right.
So everything is relative to the location. So
Okay,
that's
great.
why I went with multifamily.
Multifamily. Okay, yeah. So you mentioned that your financial situation was kind of rough before you got going, and you mentioned that one of your objectives was to create this passive income for the future. Can you describe more where you were at in terms of just like living and finances, and where you were trying to get to?
I have a life insurance policy on me, but I don't ever consider that something that she could rely on it if I ended up not being in the picture. And I have too much energy to not do something. I always have, and probably will, until, and now I got to say this because it's the truth. The cancer was an issue in my life. Even after I got back from Mexico, I did not receive a cure there, but I received a promise of a miracle from God. And that miracle occurred I believe it occurred. I'll have scans to prove it, but I believe that occurred about 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So I believe I'm cancer free, but still, that's to the glory of God. That's not something I did. What was the question again?
Where you were at in your life and finances and where you were trying to go.
Okay. Where I was at when I got back from Mexico, I couldn't afford to pay for the medications that they were going to give me to bring back. And they let me come back with those medications because they knew that I would pay for them eventually. I paid for the plane ticket ahead of time, or I would have still been there. So financially, we were in big trouble. But when I went to and I was still kind of in that position when I went to the boot camp in Orlando, and I saw what there was to offer with Lance's program. And we had a 401k, and I hadn't ever dipped into that, and it wasn't very big. It would maybe it would survive 2 years if I was gone. And I called my wife up, and my son was there with me, and I said, Hannah, I'd like to invest in this at the highest level, at the platinum level, and it's 30 grand. Can I do that? She said, whatever you think, dear. She's a saint.
It's a saint.
I was expecting some pushback, and man, she said, if that's what you think we need to do it. She didn't have a clue what Lance's program was, really. So
yeah.
I did it.
Trusted you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. It was a good investment. Man, I had some tough times early on in the program with attitude and mood, and Hoku she was just the rock. She didn't buy into that. She just said, you need to move forward here, and this is how you do it. And so Lance and his coaches they're good.
That's great.
So
Do you have a specific financial goal that you're shooting for?
I did have, and I've been really busy in the last 2 months, and I've not been involved in searching and seeking out deals. And part of it is because the attitude of the interest rates going through the roof. I don't want to buy anything now, and that may not be exactly right. I've been away from Lance's program for a year, and so I want to get back into that and see where we're going with that. And I'm thinking I need to arbitrage Airbnb, because I don't have to buy property when the interest rates are sky high, but I can buy the cash flow. And so that's what I believe I will end up doing. And I have since Lance's program, I bought a house in Florida. That was more of a heritage purchase, because a house came on the market right across the court from my daughter's house, and it was something I had to do just to keep her sane, because she's so far away from family, and she actually is assisting a little bit with that. So now that we're getting cash flow out of St. Clairsville, Ohio, that gives me credibility when I start looking for financing for another multifamily. I have history, I have credibility, and I can find financing much easier because I'm not totally green. I've got a track record, and that's huge. Not that stopped me before. It was not the track record that got me financing on that. It was my stick-to-itiveness and not taking no for an answer. It's okay. If I got to know, then I'm going to look somewhere else. So, but that's important, because circumstances are always up and down, and more often than not against you, and you just work through the circumstances, you work around them.
So do you have a financial target, that you're aiming for? It doesn't have to be an immediate one, but down the road.
I'd like to have $100,000 coming in without any input other than maybe some book work and some maintenance and maybe management dealing with contractors. So that my son can do that and do whatever else he's doing. And I don't have a sunset clause. I don't have a firm sunset clause anymore on my life like I did when I first started this program. We're all going to, this life is very short no matter what age you are, and it could end any day. But what got me started in this program was I thought that my life would be significantly shorter than my wife's.
So what would you say your ultimate dream is?
To serve God. He has called me to start a ministry of healing myself. And so huge money targets and traveling the world and all that stuff has gone by the wayside. I have a different bucket list. I dumped that old bucket list out when I was in Mexico because I thought there wasn't going to be any time for a bucket list to be fulfilled. And now that there is, and finances are changing, my bucket list has changed significantly. And it's far more poignant than the one I had before. And I have to say that just because it's the absolute truth, and I have to give glory to God.
Do you want to share any of the new items on your bucket list? And you don't have to, but if you want to.
The ministry of healing that I've been called to, I had a vision from the Father, and it was his direct call for me to start a ministry of healing. Well, at the time, I thought it was just, okay, so he wants me to lay hands and pray for healing for people. Oh no, it was way bigger than that. It's becoming far bigger, where there's a bunch of people in my parish that are receiving training for this healing ministry, and my parish is going to become a center for training people from many, many other parishes. So his vision is way beyond anything I could think of. I don't have materialistic things on my bucket list. I have things of bringing people closer to God in any way I can do that. And those are my bucket list things. When he said, I have a new direction for you, a couple of times that I've been in front of God and Jesus, Mary, the mother of Jesus, I've had to speak absolutely what's in my heart. And they'd ask me to do a ministry, and I'd say, no, you got the wrong guy. And we'd have a little bit of discussion. And he'd say, wait a minute, Gene, your whole prayer has been not my will, Father, but yours be done. This is my will. Step up and do it. But I'm afraid. And he'd say, there is no fear in my will. The fear you have is your ego getting in the way of my will. And so really, do I have a bucket list? It's to bring people closer to God and to salvation. What greater? This life is so short that bucket lists here are pretty purposeless. I've always wanted to travel, and so has my wife. And if we are blessed enough to get to do that, we will. But my travels will be to go to different holy places, maybe. But I just don't need to. I don't need to go to the South Pole like I wanted to before. I wanted to do so many big things, and the big things have changed. The definition has changed. And that doesn't fit in many people's picture, but this is the story that I need to tell because it's absolutely been monumental and salvific in my life. Before I went to Mexico City, I was not on the right track. I was absolutely not on the right track. And I could have said at that point, I didn't know it, but I was going straight to hell. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. And I received the gift of salvation there through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Beautiful.
So how's that for a story? That's probably not one you get very often.
It's not, and it's exactly what we need to hear. So that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to investing. What obstacles did you face when you got started?
To a certain extent, belief in myself, and the coaches helped me through that. Thinking correctly. I made a big mistake about investing in a low population area. That I about lost $15,000 and lost the whole deal based on that. I mean, the sellers were saying, "Okay, I'll give you one more extension," and I finally got it financed. Belief that I could do this without a whole bunch of money, finding private other investors to work with me. I didn't know if that would be possible. Lance had stories of how that works, but I had some doubts about a lot of things then. So.
Okay. And you mentioned a stick-to-itiveness. Why did you stick with the process when you faced these hurdles? Is that why, or were there other things?
I believed that this was a good deal because of the storage units that were attached to this. I knew the power of storage units because someone built a storage unit right next to my business here in California. And he sat down with me over lunch one day and said, "Man, these are good deals. It's a 30% return on investment instead of 50, or, and there's no toilets to deal with." I'm going, "Yeah, that's true. That's pretty good, interesting deal." But I didn't know it's a select market. But when I saw this apartment complex with a LED sign out front on the highway that was turned off, not being used, and the storage unit was almost empty, I'm going, "Are you guys nuts? How could more mismanaged it be?" And then after I purchased it, I found out just exactly how mismanaged it was. They would rent to anybody that could fog a mirror. I had 5 registered sex offenders living in there. And that kind of crimps the style of families moving in. Most of them were just above homeless, and the rents on the apartment were just above homeless. I had people who had been homeless the year before, and their mother paid the $100 deposit to get into it. $100 deposit? How's that? And so when I took over and I raised the rents $35, I had 5 people move out in the middle of the night.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah, it was a good thing because 2 of them were the registered people, and we needed some apartments to rehab right off the bat. So anyway.
So how has investing in real estate impacted other areas of your life?
It's opened the eyes of my family as to the benefits of that, and how I didn't let things stop me. I didn't curl up in a ball and just give up.
Mm-hmm.
I never have, but this opened the eyes of my son, he's now taking care of my businesses pretty much, when COVID hit, I was high risk. And so they wouldn't let me go to the businesses anymore. And my wife still does. And, but they see that maybe I'm kind of retired from the businesses, but not completely. I still go there. But now I'm working on these other things, and I'm just getting ready to go back in to real estate because I've got so many things taken care of in my life, and I'm excited to get back into that. And I need to find out the new thinking with the interest rates on the way up. I bought a house when the interest rates were 14%. That's the one I sold for $1,000 less than I bought it for.
Yeah.
People don't understand what rising interest rates do to payments.
A huge impact. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, you're paying a third more if you buy a regular house right now than you did if you bought it a year ago because of the interest rates. A third more is what the payments will be. So that's huge. And the last thing you want is a variable rate, but that's getting tough to find. The house I bought in Florida is variable rate, and it's all I could get out of them because there were so many. It's on the coast of Florida. It has a dock, it has a boat slip, and it's in a great location, and it is above hurricane flood stage, but there was 2 deals that had been sold with cash under the table, so the property wouldn't appraise. It would not appraise because there'd been 2 deals where $100,000 had gone to a house under market value.
Wow.
And that was a problem. It seemed like, man, everything I was doing was just a nightmare to get done. That was another 3-month close. We finally found financing. So
how has your financial situation changed since when you started?
the businesses exploded when COVID hit, because not everybody, a lot of people quit driving into the Bay Area from where we live. My businesses are landscape related, so they're sitting at home looking at their landscaping. There's 2 tanks of gas worth of money that they're not having to put in their tank. They're probably working half time anyway. And so our landscape businesses took off. It was the first time they were really profitable since 2009 or 10, so that took off. So that was a huge blessing. And that was also about the same time I got back from Mexico and I invested with Lance. Was at the beginning of the pandemic. At that same time, we had a property go into foreclosure because I missed half a payment. And man, so I had to do private money to refi it, and that took some time. And if it hadn't been for COVID shutting down foreclosures, I would have been in one. So, and because of the medical expenses and everything else, I had private money deals on 2 of my commercial properties here that I had to refi. Part of it was because of the money I spent in Mexico. And so those are still that way, but they're fixed rate. And before long, that's going to be a good rate.
Right.
I think so. Anyway, the financial picture, because the St. Clairsville property is cash flowing and the Pennsylvania property is cash flowing, those are now positive things in our financial portfolio. And it's going to make it very easy to continue the process of buying more multifamily properties. And I'm not in the mode of buying and flipping, buying and fixing up and flipping. That's difficult to do remotely. It can be done if you got good contractors lined up and you're investing in the same city all the time. That works just fine. But I'm changing my focus from Ohio to Florida because now I have a home base there, and So that's where I'm focused now.
Great. So what did you hope would happen that hasn't?
I had hoped to buy 2 or 3 a year, and the chunk of material that I bit off in St. Clairsville was huge. The rehab was far greater than I thought it would be. I traveled there. Last year I went there 5 times for 2 weeks at a time. So that was huge. And so it took a lot more effort than I thought it would, and double the money on the rehab. I should know that. It always takes more than you expect, more time than you expect. Every project that I've ever done, I always underestimate that. And I guess that's because I'm an optimist. So that's what I wish would have gone better, was not as much rehab, that I would be able to spend more time looking for other things to purchase. And my son, who is taking care of my local businesses, one's a landscape supply business. That's pretty easy. I've got a manager there for 25 years. The other one, my son is managing, because when I was in Mexico, my manager quit there and I couldn't come home. I said, Aaron, you have to do this. He said, I hate this, Dad. Well, he's taken over and done much better job than any other manager I ever had. But he's telling me, Dad, you let me take care of the business. You go buy some more real estate. So, because we were partners in this during all through Lance's program, and he knows the power of it. And so he's telling me, get back to work.
It's great when your son does that.
Yes, he's amazing. So
what's happened that surprised you?
The quality of the coaches. I didn't really know what to expect, but the quality of the coaches was tops. I know. One thing on the downside that surprised me was it took a couple of months to actually get the coaching in place for me. I had to make calls, and it's like I fell through the cracks, and it was really a couple months before I got going with the program. And but man, once I got connected, it went really well. What else surprised me? The difficulty of finding good deals. That was a little bit surprising. They don't just fall into your lap. You have to do a lot of homework before they do. But nothing comes easy that's good. So
what excites you about the future and the possibilities it holds?
Bringing my son into the picture, because he doesn't want to manage this business forever. He gets pretty sick of it sometimes. He says, I don't want to do this anymore, Dad. But there's also, whatever you do that is of high value is stressful. But I want to get my grandson involved, my son's son. And I want him to see the power of this, because I saw the power of real estate when I was 25. And if I'd have stuck with it, I was buying and flipping and living in the house while we were doing that. That's not the right way, not unless you have a wife for a saint, or a saint for a wife. But I want to get my grandson involved. He's 17. He doesn't have a clue what he wants to do. And I want to help form his future and give him guidance in ways that will always give him something to do, that gives him value and gives him income, and is good for his and his family's future. So that's where I want this program to benefit, is my kids and my grandkids.
So what strengths do you possess that you think helped you in real estate investing?
Which trends?
Personal characteristics, sorry. Like which strengths?
Sticking to it, just not giving up. because so many people do. I know Lance said, 15% of the people stick with it.
So what's changed about who you are since you started down this path?
Real estate wise, or
No.
I've explained completely, I think, how I have changed over the last 4 years from the time I signed up with Lance. And the 6 months before that, I was in Mexico City for 6 months trying to qualify for this Nobel winning medicine that the US didn't have a clue about, but Germany and Belgium and Israel and Canada did have. They did research so I could be the first person treated with this medicine. It didn't cure me, but it knocked the heck out of the cancer. But I'm still under treatment from them. They'll find out in December that I no longer have cancer in my body, but I'm going to be faithful to their treatments until that time when I have a scan. What's changed in my life? My family has gotten closer to God. He completely, my will is completely wrapped around what he wants for me. And the real estate program fits into that. It's not contrary to what he wants me to do. He wants me to continue growing and being faithful to my family and to my goals and dreams. And even though I feel I'm positive that there's no more cancer, that isn't going to change my direction with him or with this real estate. I need something to do. I'm going to go back into the real estate thing. There's room for both of those things in my life. But I do have to continue to tell my story, because this is all this blessing that I had in the last 4 years is not about me. They made it very clear. You need to continue to tell your story, because it's not about you. It's about the blessings that this story will give to other people. So, anyway.
Great. So, almost the last question. I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from now. How's your life different? Where are you at in your life?
I will have my grandson and possibly my granddaughter, if it's her choice, to become investors and to learn what I know. I pray that my daughter in Florida will have little teeny children running around, because they don't have at this point. She's a doctor in a hospital, and she was COVID free all during the non-vaxxed days. But when it came due, she had to get vaccinated. And since then, she's had 3 miscarriages. And I don't know I'm not making any judgments on that, but I hope that her desire is fulfilled there. And I believe we will not be living in California anymore at that point. Don't know for sure where we'll be. I don't think it will necessarily be, it won't be Florida full time. But I don't plan on being in California at that point. Neither does my son. So he wants out of California so bad. And we will, wherever we go, he will go, or vice versa. So.
Great. So last question. What advice do you have to offer to others?
You need to follow your heart. And if your dreams match your heart, you will make them come true. And real estate, I believe, is one of the most flexible ways to develop independent wealth that I know about. I don't know of anything else. I've tried a lot of them. I'm 69 years old, and I've been through a lot of stuff. I get excited about things, and then if the structure isn't there, and the what drives you isn't doesn't see something that's true, you'll fall away. And this, no matter whether the economy is going up or going down or flat, it's always cyclical and there's always a money to be made. And especially if you have a coach like Lance, who has been in it for a long time and has seen the ups and downs. You know, I've been through a lot of ups and downs in the real estate market too. I haven't been buying and selling all my life, but I did when I was younger, and I knew it was good. And then I got involved in the sod farm and landscaping, and I got so busy in that I didn't do anything about real estate. And then when I was circling the drain, so to speak, that's kind of the comical way I put it. When I'm circling the drain and thinking I got to do something to make sure my wife is got some financial freedom and not just relying on my children, I turned back to real estate. So should have been there all my life. All roads lead to where we're at.
True. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with Lance Edwards, this is Kristen Crabtree. Please join us again when we interview our next department champion. If you'd like to learn how you could be our next department champion, please call our office at 281-667-3638. You're only one deal away.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.